fake food fakery and the fakeness of fake food, otherwise known as food fraud and flavor fakery. There is a lot of fraud in the food industry, and some of it's going to really surprise you. But we're going to take a look at some of the more obnoxious fakes out there and frauds and counterfeits, like maple syrup. Would you believe that there is actually a major state-sponsored cartel for regulating the production, price, and distribution of maple syrup in Canada? Yep, the Canadian government actually keeps a strategic reserve of the stuff. So next time you think of Canadians as harmless, polite, Dudley Do-Rights, bear in mind that there is a history of crime connected to maple syrup and a black market for peddling the illicit stuff. Now, before you laugh, bear in mind that real maple syrup per ounce can cost as much as 30 times the cost of crude oil. Now, I'm not going to say too much on this subject because I don't want my body to be found dangling from a maple tree up by the northern border. All I will say for now is that if a thing is valuable enough to steal, it might be valuable enough to counterfeit. And that's all I'm going to say about that. You connect the dots. But what is transparently known is that most of what's sold as pancake syrup or table syrup is just corn syrup with food coloring. Now, this might be radical, but the last time I checked, corn syrup came from the corn plant, which is a grass, and decidedly not a tree, and most certainly not a maple tree. Maple syrup comes from maple trees, which are, wait for it, trees, not grass. Maple syrup does not come from corn or any other type of grass. If you want the real thing, read the label carefully. Look at the ingredient list. It should have one ingredient and only one. Can you guess what it is? That's right. You win. Maple syrup. And don't be fooled by ingredient lists that use the word natural. Do you know what the legal definition is of natural? Nothing. Literally nothing. As far as the law goes, your computer is natural, your car is natural, everything that exists legally is natural, so it means legally absolutely nothing. They could make that stuff out of used antifreeze and hairspray, and it would be legal to call it natural. Seriously. And it keeps getting worse. I just checked out one brand of syrup that right there on the label said Aunt Jemima. And it turned out that when I finished my investigation, there was no actual Aunt Jemima in the product. None. Another one called Log Cabin had 0 actual logs and no cabins whatsoever. And Mrs. Butterworth's had no Mrs. Butterworth. In fact, it didn't even have any butter. In fact, it didn't have any butt. Though you could take solace that if you eat enough sugary stuff, you might end up with a surplus of butt, so all is not lost. Expect to pay at least $10 for a bottle of the real thing. Yeah, that's more money than the fake stuff, but it still has a lot more flavor and more actual nutrients in it. It's still mostly sugar, yes, naturally occurring sugar, but sugar nonetheless, and your body will treat it like a sugar, meaning that it will spike your insulin just as quick as a spoonful of table sugar. But it also has little plant micronutrients, so at least you get something good with it. Oh, and speaking of winning, someone is going to get this awesome kitchen towel with a gorgeous Eat Is Love logo on it. This is actually a really nice towel. You can totally towel things with it and stuff. So stick around and I'll tell you how you can get it for free. Okay, but back to maple syrup. It's actually a little thinner than the stuff you get at the complimentary breakfast at Hotel 6 or whatever, but the flavor is like heaven on earth, worth every penny. Those Canadians, though, they act all nicey nice, right? But when the tap hits the tree, watch your took, you hoser. Oh, that is what I'm talking about. Wasabe. Wasabe, in fact, it's not even illegal to call the fake stuff wasabi. And the fake stuff is probably all you've ever had. It's mostly horseradish and food coloring. By the way, there's nothing wrong with enjoying it because honestly, horseradish is delicious. I love it. But just know that chances are you've never had the real thing. I have, ostensibly anyway. It was a little lumpy and a little watery and really mild, but it was delicious. But in fact, I had a nigiri that was just a few tablespoons of pure straight wasabi on a rice bed. Now, that would be really hard to eat if it were the stuff we're used to, but like I said, real wasabi is super mild. And don't feel bad about this. Even in Japan, I've heard it's estimated that only about 5% of what's sold in restaurants is real wasabi. So the fake stuff is, if nothing else, perfectly authentic. If you enjoy it, then enjoy it. I love it. So this video isn't to make you feel bad or anything. I just want you to be empowered to know what you're getting and what you're eating, because you are made out of food. And I hope, by the way, that you are delicious. No, I don't mean it like that. Or do I? Sorry, honey. No, I mean actual honey. Trust me, I am not flirting with you. I am trying to inform you, dagnabbit. Okay, this one makes me especially sad because honey. But a lot of what's sold as honey is basically sugar water, more syrup made from corn or cane or rice. And the fact is, it's kind of inescapable mathematically. There simply aren't enough bees to keep up with global demand. Now, with global demand for honey rising at the same time as an epidemic of colony collapse disorder reducing bee populations every year, there's only one way to satisfy the market. Now, any economically minded folks out there might want to guess what it is because, yep, the only way to keep up with the market is to make up. A lot of what is sold as honey is either partly or in whole just another dressed up sugar water, and unless you apply some discernment, there's a good chance that you are buying bogus honey and paying someone a lot of money to rip you off. Now, this isn't the most reliable rule, but generally if your honey is imported or packaged in single-serving containers, you have little reason to be optimistic. Unless, believe it or not, you're at a well-known fast food joint whom I will not name, but is often referred to colloquially as McDonald's. Yeah, it's true. McDonald's honey is 100% real actual honey. Good for them. But in general, I don't trust single servings, and be careful with low-cost, mass-produced brands in the major grocers. Some of them are real honey, but it's often of pretty low quality. And some of the cheap stuff is blended from multiple sources, watered down, swimming in antibiotics, and subjected to heat that damages and strips its nutritional goodness. Now, that being said, a lot of the people who blend and package honey take their craft really seriously, and they can hit flavor and consistency points with incredible precision. It's an art. But I just think it's better to support local makers in your area. Bees are really important, and they're kind of in trouble right now, so they could use your help. I strongly encourage you to buy your honey from a local producer who takes good care of their bees. Your local farmer's market is bound to have at least one of these. Make sure it's local, and have a chat with the person selling it to you. They generally love talking about their craft because it's a life's passion. Real honey is a gateway to an entire world that's worth knowing. Sadly, though, as a dear friend of mine often says, beauty often attracts evil, and honey is beautiful and no exception. The law has nabbed honey smugglers sneaking fake antibiotic-laced stuff through different borders not too differently from how it's done with illicit drugs. Millions of dollars change hands along the way. Some countries have figured out that if they cut honey with rice syrup, lab tests can't detect it. One example was some Chinese producers who cut their antibiotic-laden honey and then shipped it via Malaysia, where it got labeled as being a Malaysian product, and then it was sold to consumers in the U.S. for less than half of what our domestic product costs. That's what's known as trans-shipping. It is so cheating, not to mention just nasty. Another time, there was a German company caught illicitly selling watered-down Chinese honey that they claimed was Russian in a case that turned out to be the biggest food fraud case in American history. Not only that, but it was contaminated with an antibiotic so dangerous to your health that it's illegal in the U.S. Seriously, just support your local producers. Yes, it costs more, but ew. And if all that weren't enough, there have also been strings of crime where nefarious beekeepers have literally stolen hives from other beekeepers. I shouldn't laugh because it's financially ruinous for people who are already struggling to get by. I mean, we're talking losses in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. It's just that honey. It's so sweet and innocent. It's honey. Well, maybe I should do an entire video on honey. What do you think? Put something in the comments if you'd like to see that. And also check out some of the existing YouTube videos from other creators on this subject. It's really pretty interesting. This topic is really worth knowing about. But support a local apiary, which makes me wonder, if a place they raise bees is an apiary, what do you call a place that raises apes? A bee-eary? I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud here. Oh, but one last thing about honey. It is pretty much like maple syrup in that despite being a naturally occurring sugar, it is still a sugar. And just like maple syrup, it will make your pancreas do the cha-cha just as quick as a bowl of kids' cereal. And it also has lots of other good things in it too, but don't fool yourself into thinking that your body processes it differently at all from table sugar. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't eat this stuff. In fact, you should eat it. Just know that it is indeed sugar. Truffle oil. Now, here's a good rule of thumb. If your truffle flavor came out of a bottle in the form of a so-called truffle oil, it's pretty much definitely fake and probably synthesized from petrochemicals. Real truffles are super expensive. If you didn't get a little hit of anxiety from the price of your truffle something, you're either very wealthy or you're not eating actual truffles. I myself have only ever had truffle oil, and frankly, I think it's a little gross. Remember in the aughts when every hole-in-the-wall burger joint had truffle fries and entire streets smelled like the stuff? It lasted about 3 or 4 years, and it just ruined me, utterly ruined me to fake truffle oil. It's just so gross. I only hope that if and when I have a chance to eat the real thing, that I won't be unable to enjoy it. Parmesan cheese. Real Parm can only be made in one region of Italy called, get this, Parma. It's full of crystals and it has an almost overwhelming ability to make your mouth water. It's one of the best examples of umami flavor in the world, and it should make your head spin with those densely flavored little crystals. If you buy your Parm from a shaker, you're probably buying something that is partly wood pulp and partly a lie. Make sure your Parm is the real thing, from Italy. The label should specifically say Parmigiano Reggiano, otherwise it's probably fake. And don't judge by cost, because some of the fake stuff is actually more expensive than the real thing. It's fermented prevarication. Oh, and again, if you absolutely must buy that pre-grated stuff, read the ingredients. If you see powdered cellulose, just know that's industry speak for sawdust. Yes, literally wood, and positively not cheese. Vanilla. Almost every vanilla anything you have ever had is probably not real vanilla. The laws about what can be called vanilla are kind of lax. Again, read the labels carefully. If it says vanilla flavor, it's fake. If it says vanilla extract, it's probably okay. Don't trust anything cheap, but this is another case like Wasabe where you might be so used to fake vanilla that maybe you just like it. But be careful. Some of the imposters are made from dangerously toxic plants, and while those are illegal in the US, it can still sneak in via transshipping. Plus, even the stuff you get here is sometimes made from, petrochemicals. Nasty. Still, if you like that and it doesn't bother you, fine. Just don't kid yourself. If you really want the real thing, buy whole vanilla beans and eat the stuff inside after you scrape it out. Totally worth it. And yes, it's an actual bean. When they're fresh, they look just like longish beans, pretty much like these. This is fake, though, like beyond fake. This is plastic model food. It's not even legal. It's not even legal to sell this as food at all. So, yeah. Moving right along, turn on Mr. Teleprompter. Oh, caviar, yeah. This is one where there are big crime syndicates. So I'm not going to wear these beans. What do I look like, a bean wearer? Okay, caviar. This is another one where there are big crime syndicates selling counterfeit caviar. Now, I don't know about you, but I would never know the difference. I generally don't eat things that cost more than a day's salary, so it would be really easy to rip me off. I would make an easy mark, almost as easy as the endangered fish that are sometimes used to make the good stuff. I like caviar, okay, it's good, but not amazing to me. Is it worth the cost and the chance of being ripped off? For me, for now, I'd have to say probably not. Olive oil. Olives are drupes, stone fruits related to cherries, almonds, peaches, and plums. I don't know why I think that's interesting. I just do. But it also means that almonds, botanically speaking, are not actually nuts, which frankly is just nuts in itself. It could be that your favorite nut is not even a nut, just like peanuts, which are actually legumes like beans. So almonds and peanuts are not only not nuts, they are also not related to each other. It's like a Dane and an Ethiopian both claiming to be from the same Chinese family. It just kind of makes you want to droop, doesn't it? Whatever that means. I guess it means like the act of stone fruiting, which when I was a kid meant eating every piece of fruit in the house because I had the munchies. Anyway, imposter olive oil has been around since the ancient Roman Empire, and a lot of the labeling out there is flat out fraudulent, so it's hard to trust even that. You just have to learn as much as you can pick up from the label about like the date, the country of origin, make sure it's first cold pressed, and avoid the cheap stuff. And then you just have to take a chance, take it home, and smell it. It should smell fruity or like grass. If it smells rancid, you've been ripped off. Good olive oil is also a little spicy. There's actually a formal ranking system that describes the heat levels of different olive oils. This is one food where you should go out of your way to avoid the fake stuff because real olive oil has awesome health benefits. The best olive oil is better to eat without heating it. Use it like a condiment. Just pour it on stuff. If you really want to get the most out of it, don't cook with it. I know a lot of food gurus want you to cook with it exclusively even, but I disagree. For cooking, use something with a higher smoke point and a neutral flavor. My favorite is avocado oil. Olive oil has a wonderful flavor and is a nutritionally superior food. Just pour it on stuff and eat it. Coffee. Now here's another place where I might lose some friends, but a lot of coffee is more stepped on than cheap toot from City Park. Oh, and by the way, coffee is another stone fruit, just like almonds, olives, and peaches. But good coffee, real coffee, is somewhat expensive to produce, so there's a significant incentive to step on it. Low-quality beans are a lot less expensive to grow and harvest, so it's not uncommon for people to put low-grade stuff in a bag and put a fake label on it. It's also really super easy to cut ground coffee with any number of brown bits of stuff. A popular one is our old friend powdered cellulose, aka sawdust, but also paper, ground up grains and twigs. The label won't be much help to you, because a lot of producers aren't exactly playing by the rules. It's really easy to get away with because the coffee supply chain is really complex, making it nigh impossible to trace. Best thing to do is look for third-party certifications, buy from reputable sources, and only buy whole bean coffee. Again, small batch roasters might be your best bet. Just one more reason to support local producers, right? In fact, if there's one takeaway from this entire video, that's it. Support local producers, not just for their sake, but for your own. In fact, that's going to be the magic phrase. The first person to type "eat local" in the comments will get this towel, or one very much like it, for free. Eat local. And God, all my swag that I try to show off in these videos, that just something about my colors and my logo gets really washed out. Maybe if I use the B camera, you can see it much better. It's very vibrant colors. And like I said, this is a great towel for toweling things with. If you have something that needs to be toweled, I highly recommend this one. It's a great towel. And I love supporting local producers too. So type "eat local" in the comments, be the first one to do so, and get this towel for free. Heck, I'll even pick up the shipping. Why? Because I'm not above bribing you and buying your friendship, duh. And keep watching my channel. There will be more giveaways. In fact, if you hit the notification bell, you'll be among the first to know when I post new videos, which will increase your chances of winning. But there is bad news here too, I'm afraid. I'm sorry to be a buzzkill, but the really bad news here is that outside of the Canadian syrup cartel, enforcement for food fraud fakery is feckless at best. The penalties are hardly a slap on the wrist, while there's an oodle of boodle to be made selling counterfeit food, so caveat emptor all the way. And what's worse is that it's perfectly legal to put useless junk into food and call it anti-caking agents or flavor. In fact, there are almost no rules for what can be called flavor. If you want to never sleep again, then you should Google the word castoreum, and then think about how much cheap ice cream you've eaten in your life. I apologize in advance, by the way. It's so disgusting. Castoreum. If you have trouble sleeping and you're easily disturbed, don't look it up. You don't want to know. But the good thing is that local producers are often eager to tell you everything about their operations, so ask them. Go to the real farmers market and talk to real people who produce real food. Real food sometimes seems like it costs a little more, but that's just on the surface because it's better than paying $10 per pound for sawdust or $20 per pound for soybean oil, which isn't even good for you. And in the long run, healthy food might seem expensive, but staying healthy can save your money by saving your life. As has been pointed out by others before me, you're not just what you eat, you're also what your food ate. You make the food, and then the food makes you. You make the food, and then the food makes you. Okay, thanks for watching. Ciao. It's a fake.